Welcome back to the Modern Firm Podcast. John Mitchell and Darren Root back with you.
Hey, John, you ready for another one today?
Ready for another one. Let's talk about the one that scares everybody. Don't have to be scared, but we're going to talk about security today.
Yeah, I think it's arguably the most important thing that firms should be thinking about.
Yeah.
You know, I was doing a Modern Firm workshop not too long ago. Well, we were doing it together. And I think the group asked me, you know, what's the most important thing that I could do this year? And my response was secure your firm. So I still think that that's absolutely true. You know, whether you're changing practice management software or you're trying to figure out ideal clients, if your firm's not secure, it's a problem.
So you were a practitioner for a long time. Was security a concern like it is now? I mean, I'm sure cybersecurity was much different, but...
Well, yes and no. No and yes, probably. So, you know, for the longest time, things were on paper for a while anyway. So, no. And then as we became more digital and once we plugged into the, you know, into the outlet, you know, the internet, I always sort of felt like we were more insecure, but nobody was talking about it. And so it wasn't a topic of conversation in the industry for the longest time. And I was always like, but people can get in. I mean, I don't know anything about the firewall I have. I don't know anything about any of this stuff that's in the other room. And, you know, we had a IT guy show up every few months and run some patches. And that was, so I think it was blissful unawareness where cyber criminals weren't as sophisticated as they are today.
Well, unfortunately, you can't be unaware at this point.
Today, you cannot afford to be unaware.
But there are still a lot of firms. In fact, it's kind of amazing how many we run across who are not unaware, but they are unprepared.
Blissfully ignorant, I think is how I would think about that. It's kind of, you know, out of sight, out of mind. And I just don't think you can afford to be out of sight today. So you have to be focused on this. And I think some of the things that are absolutely true today, I probably wouldn't have said it 5 years ago and certainly not 10 years ago. But today is you should not have a server in your closet in your office. That should not exist today. So this whole concept of moving to the cloud, you know, people, I think for the longest time thought moving to the cloud, or firm owners thought moving to the cloud was waiting for your vendor to come out with a browser-based solution. I certainly sort of felt that way. You know, going from QB desktop to QBO, right? And I'm thinking once I got to QBO, I'm in the cloud, right? At least on that application. In today's world, moving to the cloud is a lot different than a vendor's application, you know, being browser-based. Today, moving to the cloud is making sure that all of your applications, whether they are browser-based or desktop-based, are in a cloud environment. And that cloud environment is being monitored, backed up, and secure, sophisticatedly secure on a regular basis. So it's getting everything out of your office. It's having a strategy around this.
You know, it's funny. It's easy to think about security as like the separate part of your firm that you have to take care of, and then you can kind of just not think about it and go to the other things. And in fact, as we talk about the Modern Firm framework, it's easy for security to kind of take a back seat. I love that I heard you say it at the Modern Firm workshop a couple weeks ago, that this is the most important thing that you need to be thinking about in your firm. And like, you could hear a pin drop in the room when that happens, because it isn't something that is just a category of your firm. This is something that has to be a part of all of your decisions about software, has to be a part of your staff training, all of that. And that's what really we're a proponent for.
I was having a conversation yesterday, John, with our new VP of product for Rightworks. And we were talking about, I was sort of trying to explain the, I would say, opportunities within the accounting profession. And I see an opportunity based on the pain points that I know that firm owners are experiencing. So when they're experiencing significant pain or vulnerability, to me, that feels like an opportunity to help them.
Absolutely.
And so this discussion was onboarding of new staff. So you just think about this for a second. You hire a new staff person, and let's say it's like our friend James, who has 30 applications in his firm that he's running. And we kind of laugh, but a lot of firms have well over 20.
Yeah.
They just haven't thought about that yet. So you've got to onboard this new staff person to well over 20 applications. And then you start assigning clients to that new staff person. And so let's say that you assign, 50 clients to that new staff person over the next year.
Yeah.
Right? Well, if those are kind of client accounting clients, the normal client accounting client has logins to their bank account, which may be one or two bank accounts, maybe to their American Express, maybe to their Visa, maybe to their QuickBooks Online, maybe to, keep going. So let's assume that those 50 have 5 logins that new staff person has to now have access to. So that's what, 250, it's 5 times 50 is 250 plus the 20 plus apps inside the firm. So let's say that, it's almost 300 logins now that create vulnerabilities for your firm. It just, I think the challenge is then what happens when that, not only do those vulnerabilities exist during the tenure of that employee, let's assume that employee goes somewhere else. Now what?
Yeah.
You have to offboard 250?
Yeah.
300?
Gosh. I hadn't even thought about all the variables, honestly.
So we were talking about how do you make this so much easier for a firm to manage the complexity and the vulnerabilities that are out there.
Yeah.
I'm on the board of a bank, and we think I'm on the technology committee as well as the audit committee, but in our technology committee, we are constantly thinking about what all of our endpoints are, what all of our vulnerabilities are. And you start thinking about everywhere there's an ATM machine. That ATM machine is plugged into probably a vendor somewhere that's helping us manage that. And it's also plugged into our central office and our IT team. And those cables create vulnerabilities everywhere.
Yeah.
And accounting firms are not a lot different than that. But as a bank, we're way more aware of those vulnerabilities. As an accounting firm, I think we're still blissfully ignorant.
I heard Roman Kepchak, our buddy, that talks about this a lot with Rightworks. I heard him give that analogy a couple weeks ago, and I can't get it out of my head, that for people who aren't really savvy when it comes to cybersecurity and understanding all of that, think of it like you would your house. I love this conversation. He's like, if you had 300 doors to your house, you would fix something. You would be thinking about this, because you can't go to bed at night and lock all 300 doors before you go to bed.
I'm starting to think I might have close to 300.
You might, fireplaces too. Yeah, I mean, the vulnerabilities in your house before you go to bed at night, to lock your family, to make sure everybody is secure. Every single one of those doors, windows has to be locked. And you think about that, the same thing is true in your firm. And we have all of these vulnerabilities that just because they're not as visible doesn't mean they aren't as dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so we're talking about, I went deep into this from the very beginning of our conversation, because I think this is so important, John.
Yeah,
what we're talking about is smart security management inside your firm. And I think it's one of the most important strategies that a firm owner can do now.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to go it alone, because you're just not going to have the level of understanding. I don't have the level of understanding. I have enough to be dangerous. A lot of firm owners don't have enough to even be dangerous.
Yeah.
You need to have a high degree of confidence in a vendor that does nothing but this for accounting firms. Because what happens in an accounting firm, again, going back to my friend James, who has 30 applications, one of those, some of them's tax software, some of them are accounting software, so on and so forth. All those need to run updates. You need to make sure you're locking down the right information. There's just a lot going on. So I think whatever vendor you use to help you do this, to move to the cloud, needs to understand the tax and accounting space. So this is not just as simple as, oh yeah, I'll move to the cloud. I'm just going to move my stuff to Azure and let my local IT guy manage it.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think, Darren, everything in all of our SMART series has been driven by the two most important assets in your firm, your clients and your team. And this is absolutely in the middle of that. I think about how overwhelming it would be. And I had never thought about it until you just mentioned it today, how overwhelming it would be for a new staff member to come on and have access to all of this and know in the back, especially younger people, they understand the vulnerabilities here. And that's exhausting. And then that concept that we've talked about from the beginning when it comes to how much we love working with accountants is that sense of responsibility they have to their clients. This has to be at the forefront of your mind when it comes to that. I love being a part of something that gives people the energy that they need to go do their work. And to me, that is what you're talking about, is this one vendor that is able to say, we've got this. We've got a proven history of this, and let's take that anxiety away so you can go do your work.
I mean, this is self-serving for Rightworks because this is what we do.
Yeah.
But it's another reason that I sort of understand, how this works fairly well. There's other aspects, I think, or other benefits, John, to smart security management, and you mentioned them. It's clients and team.
Yeah.
If you get your strategy around your infrastructure, which is secure, when you get that strategy right, you're making things a lot easier on your team, and you're making it easier for them to work, easier for them to get onboarded, easier for them to do their job on a daily basis, easier to do it from home and feel better about it, easier to do it at the office or wherever they're at. So it makes your team better when you get this right, but it also makes your clients better because they're more secure. We just did a survey, John, and I don't want, hopefully this doesn't come out too much before the survey results, but one of the questions that I wanted to ask on the survey was, and again, the survey was to accounting firms.
Yeah.
So we were asking accounting firms, what percentage of your clients have you helped move or have moved to a secure cloud-based environment for their accounting applications? Mm-hmm. And I think the responses were somewhere, it was 0 to 25%, 25 to 50%, 50% to 75%, 75 to 100%. So those were your four choices. And I believe the over 50%, maybe it was closer to 60%, was down in that 25%. Right? So firms are so overwhelmed with their own stuff.
Yeah.
They're not helping their clients become more secure. Maybe they don't see that as their job, but I think that's what clients want from the accounting firm. How can what's my vulnerabilities with my data as a client, and what can I do to be more secure? So I think this is really an important topic for your team and for the betterment of your team, and also for the betterment of your clients.
Darren, just like with smart client management, smart firm management, smart team management, we just keep saying somebody in your firm needs to be in charge.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think makes smart security management make so much sense for firms is the thought that somebody in your firm needs to be your smart security manager. And the thing that I love about this too, and you know how much I care about elevating team members, there's somebody on your team who cares about this probably. In almost every firm I've met, there's somebody who kind of has a propensity for this and often needs to be elevated. They often need a way for them to take more leadership in the firm. This is a great opportunity for if you're listening to this today and you're like, this is just not what I care about. I understand how important it is, but I'd like to put somebody in charge. Look for somebody on your team who needs to be elevated and give them this responsibility. We've been saying often, if someone isn't responsible, no one's responsible.
Yeah.
And we've put someone in charge of this to work with the vendor, to create that awareness inside of the firm and be in charge. Is a great opportunity for leadership.
I mean, I think it starts with having an awareness.
Yeah.
And hopefully listening to this podcast is a start.
Yep.
And then taking that awareness and starting to really think about a strategy.
Yeah.
And if you need to engage somebody to help you think about a strategy, then that's the next step.
Yeah.
I've kind of a funny story, John. I remember at the same Modern Firm workshop. I'm not going to call this person out by name.
You about said a name.
Not calling this guy out by name, but we were talking about password managers as something that can certainly help with the situation I laid out at the beginning, which was the multiple password situation and stuff. And so a lot of people use 1Password or password key, some password keeper. And the challenge, the thing is oftentimes when people use those applications, they don't use them very effectively.
Yeah.
It's like, they keep the password in there, but it's the same password
I forgot. I know
they
what you're
use
talking about.
over and over.
He said he had how many instances of the same password?
Yeah. So if you use one of these password solutions, which I do, it'll give you a report on how vulnerable you are. After I talked about this in our session, he hit me on break and he said, I have 266 logins that have reused the exact same password,
which means your password manager has done nothing for you.
If I'm a bad guy, I'm guessing your username is your email address, and your password is the same that it is
you're
these
using
other
for Facebook.
For everything, right?
Yes, right.
And so it's not enough just to have a password keeper out there. So it's really important that we start talking about these vulnerabilities. I remember when my password keeper started giving reports of my vulnerabilities, and not to make fun of my friend at our Modern Firm workshop, because I may not have been quite as bad as he is, but I had reused mine maybe 50, 60 times in the different logins. It took me a better part of a Saturday morning or over half a day on a Saturday to go through and fix all of that. And essentially change the password with every login to something that was complex, that the password manager was doing.
Yeah, I think the thing that I love most about the way that we cover this topic, and we always have, is that it's not driven by fear. I said it. I was doing a keynote recently, and I said, "Nothing good comes from fear." And it sounded really good at the time. Yeah. I said, "Nothing good comes from fear," and you get people in the room that are like, "Ooh," and then a guy came up to me at the end, and really nice guy. He just came up. He's like, "I don't want to disagree, but I disagree. I'm an adventurist, and a lot of good things come from fear in my life." And he said, "It's just how you deal with the fear, and don't let it paralyze you. You let it motivate you." And I think I love that when it comes to security in your firm. There's no reason to bring this to your team or your clients and make them just scared. Scared doesn't help. Aware and responsible, but then also motivated to do the right thing next. I think this is one of those cases where just a little bit of awareness maybe lead to a little bit of fear, which leads to a catalyst to take action.
We talk about a lot of things that can help your firm become more modern. Yeah. The one I think that's most important is the one we're talking about today, because it is smart security is what leaves you, or the lack of it, leaves you the most vulnerable, which leaves your firm the most vulnerable, which means your clients are vulnerable. So it's the one that you have to take the most seriously. If you have an ineffective practice management solution, that sucks.
Yeah.
Right? But it doesn't leave you completely vulnerable, like not taking smart security seriously. If you don't quite understand your ideal client profile, again, that's a thing, because it makes it a challenge for you to recruit and to have good clients and to serve those clients well. but it's not like having all your data compromised on a Friday night and you having to tell your clients early the next week that you've had a data compromise. So I think this podcast is the one I hope people take seriously as quickly as possible. Work on a strategy.
And at Rightworks, we've got all kinds of resources out there. Our friend Roman Kepchak is a machine when it comes to this stuff. And anything, just type in his name and Rightworks, and you will find ebooks and all kinds of things to help you with this. I mean, in the long run, this is about culture. We talk about culture being the collective beliefs and behaviors in your firm. You know, my kids, when I was little, I'd walk around the house every night and lock the doors in the same order. Now I can yell up the stairs, Reese, close up shop. He knows what to do.
Yeah.
He knows the garage door has to be closed. He knows all these things happen. In my house, there are collective beliefs and behaviors around our security, our physical security. This is the way you build a security effort in your firm. You begin to create this culture of we care about our clients. That means we care about our security.
Yeah.
And that's really what smart security management is about, creating a culture of beliefs and behaviors around this in your firm.
I think about if I called my bank for whatever reason and said, oh, I need you to look something up on my account. And they're like, okay.
And didn't ask you for
Yeah, can you remind me what my social security number is?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
How about my username and password? Yeah, here it is. I mean, they're not going to do that.
Right.
And I appreciate the fact that they're not going to do that today. There might have been a time where that was irritating.
Yeah.
You know, where you had to know your mother's maiden name and all these different things. Today, you know, multi-factor authentication is a welcome thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good conversation about smart security management. Hope you heard something today that moves your firm towards modern. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Modern Firm Podcast.